We're going to use Tinkercad to create a Christmas tree. We're going to use that as an ornament, for example, to hang off our Christmas tree, so we're not going to make it very large. Now, whilst you might not be able to print this because you don't have a 3D printer, we can go through the design process using CAD software as an introduction to new users, and Tinkercad is pretty user-friendly. So let's go straight into it. So let's click on the Create New Design button. That will open. Now, you will have logged in to Tinkercad with your Google credentials. So let's just jump straight in. So we're going to go over here to our shapes, which is on the right-hand side, and we're going to bring in the triangular prism, and we're just going to position that on our work plane. So if we go to the front, you can see there that we've got it. If we click on the little triangles that sit there, so the left-hand side, we can navigate using those little triangles. What we want to do is we want to stand this on its edge. So if we just click on the little arrow, and then we're just going to rotate this around until it stands up on its edge, and now that's right to go. So we're going to click off. We also want to get this so that it sits on the plane. So you'll see underneath is an arrow. I'm going to drag that arrow, just zoom in a little bit, drag that arrow up until you can see there's a 0 there, and that's now indicating it sits on the plane. So if we have a look left, click on this little arrow here, which is the front, and you can see it's actually sitting on the plane. Right-hand side, let's go through and have a look at the top. All right, now, can you see you can also just see the sides of it just running down here? Now, that's because we're not right on the top. We're not in orthographic view, we're in perspective view. So if I click on the bottom icon here, switch to orthographic view, we now don't see those. I want to rotate this a little bit. So I'm just going to click on the arrows, and I'm going to turn it around, select it, turn it around by just dragging it, and so that's at 90 degrees. All right, I'm going to click off. I'm just going to drag it up a little bit. In the bottom right-hand corner, I've got my grid set to 1 millimeter, so I think you'll find that pretty useful. Just going to drag it across a little bit until it lines up with the grid. I just want to align it with those lines. And now I'm going to go to the right-hand square. I'm going to drag that out till it comes out to 30 millimeters. All right, so take a little bit of manipulation. I'm using a mouse, so it's a little bit easier. I'm going to grab the top one here, and I'm going to drag it up until it goes to 20. And you can see that, all right, now I've got 20 and 30, and I'm going to drop that. Right, so there we have a triangular prism. Kind of looks like a Christmas tree, it's not too bad. If I click on the side view or the right view, you'll see that it's too high. What I'm going to do is I've clicked on it, I'm going to grab that red square and I'm going to drag it down till it comes to about 4 millimeters. Oh, let's go to 3. We'll make it nice and thin so we don't, if we printed it, we wouldn't have to print much. Go back up here, let's go to the top view again. Right, so what we can do now is we can go Control C and Control V, and there we have a second prism. So if we just drag that up here, we can set that above it. We can actually just make this a little bit thinner if you like. So if we come in a couple of mil there, 28, 2 mil that side, 2 mil this side, and that gives that tapered look. We can go Control C, Control V, drag this up a little bit. Now, I might just decide, oh, that's too far. No, I'll just have to approximate this. You can also use your arrow keys to move things around. So I'm actually going to taper this in a little bit. So I'll move it in 2 millimeters there, 24 on that side, 2 on this side will bring it back to 22. Right. So there we have what looks like a bit of a Christmas tree. If we want to put the stem in, I can go to a box, drag a box in here. Right, that can sit there. I can simply drag in this side here, drag in this side here, making sure that it's sitting in the center. We might want to shorten that up a little bit. So this is from the top view, so 10 mil might be perfect. But it's obviously going to be too high, it's going to be too thick, I think we'll find if we go and have a look here. And there we are. We just come, grab that little square and drag it down till we get to 3 millimeters. Come back up here to the top, and there's a Christmas tree. Now, we're going to have a look at it from the side view. All looks good. Go back to top view. So despite the fact you see all those little triangles there, that's not a big deal. But what we can do is just drag around and select everything that's there. And if we come up to the top here, you can see we have an option called group. We can just group all those, and now it's one big grouped object, and it's ready to be sent to the printer if you're going to 3D print it. But look, don't worry about getting your kids to do this and then not being able to print it. This is a great introduction to the 3D world, X, Y, and Z axes, and designing something and doing something with primitive shapes, the ones you see down the side, these basic shapes, and turning it into something that people can recognize. So that's Tinkercad. Why don't you give it a whirl?